Have you ever stopped to reflect on the genetic connection between Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese? These three peoples, so geographically close, share not only a rich and intricate history but also an ancestral bond that transcends cultural and political borders. In this video, we will delve deep into the mystery of the DNA that connects and differentiates these nations. A journey through time via genetics that promises to surprise you until the very last second. Imagine an ancient river, the Yellow River, winding through the vast expanses of East Asia. This river, much more than a source of fertility and the cradle of great civilizations, became the starting point for an intriguing genetic connection that unites peoples like the Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese. Advanced research indicates that over 70% of the genetic material of these populations originates from Neolithic farmers who inhabited its banks thousands of years ago. It's as if every drop of water from this river carried with it the secrets of a kinship that transcends generations, linking these cultures with an invisible thread of shared history. Let's start with China, a vast country with an impressive cultural diversity, home to over 1.4 billion people. Most Chinese belong to the Han ethnicity, which makes up 92% of the country's population. But what you might not know is that China is home to dozens of other ethnic groups, each with their own traditions, languages, and histories. This rich cultural tapestry is also reflected in its genetics. About 77% of Chinese DNA comes from Neolithic farmers of the Yellow River, while 33% have origins linked to Southeast Asian farmers. This highlights a historical connection to southern regions, revealing an interweaving of populations that has shaped the Chinese identity over centuries. Now let's cross the East Sea and arrive in Japan, an archipelago that has always maintained a certain degree of geographic isolation. The Japanese have a distinct genetic composition marked by the influence of two main ancestral groups, the Jomon people, the first inhabitants of the islands, and Neolithic farmers from the continent. The Jomon heritage is unique, carrying traits not found anywhere else in the world. Furthermore, the presence of DNA linked to the Ryukyu Islands adds yet another layer of complexity to Japanese genetics, setting them apart from the Chinese and Koreans. Despite this, about 61% of Japanese DNA is still connected to Neolithic farmers of the Yellow River, showing that even with their particularities, the Japanese are not entirely separated from their continental neighbors. And the Koreans? Strategically located on the Korean peninsula, they play the role of a natural bridge between China and Japan. Genetic studies show that about 77% of Korean DNA comes from Neolithic farmers of the Yellow River, aligning them closely with the Chinese. However, a distinctive element arises in the form of approximately 17% of DNA associated with hunter-gatherers from the Amur Basin, a region spanning parts of Siberia and Mongolia. This genetic trait highlights a historical connection with northern nomadic populations, whose migrations and interactions shaped unique aspects of Korean biological and cultural identity. But what does all this really mean? Have you ever wondered how much our genetics can tell stories that history books fail to mention? Understanding the genetic similarities and differences between these peoples is like opening a window into humanity's past. It's fascinating to think that behind the migrations, adaptations, and interactions that shaped civilizations, there are invisible traces that still connect us deeply. Imagine what these ancestral marks can teach us about our own existence. In the case of Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese, genetic similarities act as a guiding thread, leading us to a common origin, while differences function as unique chapters of a shared story, shaped by the local and regional influences these peoples faced over millennia. Which part of this narrative intrigues you the most? Back to China, it's fascinating to observe how genetic diversity reflects cultural diversity. Smaller ethnic groups, such as Tibetans and Uyghurs, have distinct genetic traits that show connections to even more distant regions like Central Asia. These additional elements enrich Chinese identity, making it one of the most complex in the world. Additionally, the influence of Southeast Asian farmers in Chinese DNA highlights historical interaction with regions like Vietnam and Thailand, evidencing a past of cultural and genetic exchanges. In Japan, the genetic heritage of the Jomon people serves as a reminder of the first populations that inhabited the islands long before the arrival of continental farmers. Studies show that Jomon DNA is particularly evident in populations of the Ryukyu Islands, suggesting that these regions preserved unique aspects of Japanese genetic history. This distinction also helps explain some of the cultural and linguistic differences between Japan and its neighbors. On the other hand, Koreans, with their connection to the Amur River, offer a fascinating glimpse into the impact of nomadic populations on the region's formation. Imagine vast steppes where hunter-gatherers crossed territories in search of sustenance, leaving genetic traces that now intertwine with Korean history. This genetic heritage is not just a vestige of the past, it's living proof of how human mobility shaped not only genetic diversity but also the traditions and cultures we know today. Think about how every movement of these ancient populations contributed to creating a rich biological tapestry, a testament to human resilience and adaptability. Despite cultural differences, what stands out the most is the depth of the ancestral bond between these peoples. Genetic studies show that more than 50% of the DNA of Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese can be traced back to Neolithic farmers of the Yellow River. Imagine for a moment peoples who are today separated by languages, traditions, and borders once shared a common home, a unifying origin. It's as if buried within DNA there is a secret map that connects these peoples as true ancestral siblings. This connection challenges us to reflect. How distant are we really from those we consider different? The past teaches us that we are closer than appearances suggest, connected by roots that transcend barriers and remind us of a shared humanity. And what can we learn from this? First, that our cultural and historical differences are only part of the story. Beneath these visible layers, there is a biological connection that reminds us of our shared humanity. Second, that genetics is a powerful tool to understand our past and perhaps help us build a more united future. If you've made it this far, it's because you're also fascinated by these stories that science reveals to us. And we want to hear from you. What else would you like to explore about genetics and the history of peoples? Leave your comment, share this video with friends and family, and let's uncover the mysteries of the human past together. If you enjoyed this content and want to learn more about fascinating topics, subscribe to our channel, activate the notification bell to stay updated on new videos, and don't forget to leave your comment. Your participation is very important to us.